So I'm going to talk about web accessibility. So just replace the term digital. Whenever I talk about web, it is more digital accessibility now than we are talking about web accessibility anymore. So what is web accessibility? At a very basic level, it is it is how people can use or get information from the web. So if you have been seeing the web from long time, from early 2000 and the end of 90s, it's more web is a static page. You just click a link and you will be taken to some other page. It is more hyperlinks that come together as static web pages, and you just used to read the information, get information on the web. But it is no more static web pages. We are having more sophisticated and more interactive content on the web. So we are interacting. We are not just looking at the information on the web. We are interacting to the web, and we are also contributing to the web. So many of us would have been contributing to the web in various ways. Can one of you give one example how we are contributing to the web?
Submitting data through Google Forms.
That's one. Yeah. Trust me, all of us are doing it.
Being part of social media.
Absolutely. So
posting content on
social media, like you have Twitter. I suppose all of you will have Facebook and Twitter accounts, and most of us no. That's interesting.
Somebody is saying blog.
Blogs, yeah, absolutely, yes. We are submitting information, we are sharing information on the web, we are contributing to the web. But that is how the era has been changed just by looking at the web to contributing the content to the web and the interaction. So when we talk about web accessibility, we should be able to use the content, interact with the content, contribute to the web content. And on the other side, we see that when a person is able to perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the content, it substantially would be accessible. So, perceive, understand, navigate, and interact the web, it is substantially accessible. So, there are much more to these four methods of using the web, but we will be talking about them soon. So then when we talk about web accessibility, the next thing we want to understand is why we need to have web accessibility. The reason is so simple that we talk about persons with disabilities are the most ones who are using this technology. But is it only just the persons with disabilities? It's not necessarily, because there are so many other use cases that impact the digital accessibility. Something like it's as simple as if you're making your website accessible or app accessible, it is more usable. Any one of us can use it. Say you people are being using your mobile. If you are on a side of a road and you want to book Uber or any other transport system like Ola, the biggest challenge is in the sunlight. You might not be able to see the screen as brightly or easily as you could. But if you're making your website accessible, we are ensuring that this website is usable even in sunlight. Not specifically we are targeting at the sunlight, but we are targeting at people with low vision. When this low vision users accessibility needs are met, it is more brighter and more useful. And when we are doing the usability test, we also ensure that the high contrast mode, when we switch on the high contrast mode, still the application is usable. So the accessibility features built into the applications are also taken into consideration, and to ensure that all the users, irrespective of their abilities, are met, and also the features that are built into the operating system are also usable with the application. So usability matters. When we are doing web accessibility, there are fundamentally 4 breakpoints that W3C have defined. That says when you are making the application or website accessible, it is having 4 impacts. One is the business or the market, because you are making your website accessible, as we are mentioning about the 15% of additional population who are using it, it is already available for them. 15% of additional market reach. And when you are making your applications accessible, it is more you're giving more importance to the innovative solutions to ensure that everyone is using it. These innovative solutions will increase the market reach in terms of other aspects, other usabilities. I can give an example. Recently I have gone to this summit called India Inclusive Summit, and I have met one interesting startup who are working in the space of autism. People with autism have trouble understanding the information or getting to understand. So usually it happens with the children, and they have designed an interesting app and some reading material for children, kids, especially 2 years or 2.5 years kids, to understand the very basics like the fruits or excuse me, animals, etc. And when I met the startup founders of that startup, so they're saying because the design applications of Adobe are accessible, we are able to make this product. So which in fact says that we never thought that the products in fact can increase the innovative thoughts of the people. So our goal is just to make the product accessible, both the authoring part and the output. But when it is made accessible, it is giving opportunity for people to use those tools to bring innovative solutions for the country. So it is more, it's a new business that have started for them. It is that is how the business gets impacted. Then the legal aspects, as we have enough discussions around the legal aspects of accessibility. In most of the countries, it is a legal requirement. As India, we have Right to Persons with Disabilities Act. In the US, you have Americans with Disabilities Act. You have Equality Act 2010 in United Kingdom, etc. So, which in fact have been is the center of drafting their own guidelines to ensure the web and other digital content in their country is accessible. So, if any website or application in United States is not accessible, you can go and sue them with the Department of Justice to ensure that they are providing accessible solutions. In fact, from the last 4 years, we have been seeing 36% increase in legal suits, especially in United States. And you would have been looking at the suits like Target have been sued, and majors like Amazon, Wells Fargo, American Express, Bank of America. There are so many organizations that have been sued, and in the recent era, we've been seeing the e-commerce websites are sued highly. So anyone who is not able to book a product on a website, they have the liberty to go on sue them.
In fact, I just got to know, somebody told me that only in this year, there were more than 1,000 cases. In fact, the number could be much more higher. But yeah, in US, there were more than 1,000 cases from website.
First 6 months, it is more than 7,000.
First 6 months, it's more than 7,000 cases in 2018 for not compliance to accessibility.
And I hope after 2019, we also have to beat the numbers. And we need all of you guys to step forward. It is not because to sue them or make them pay, but it is more making them aware of accessibility. Obviously, our first step will be educating them, and if people are not ready to listen, this is the only tool we have is to approach legally. Yes, being said that, there is an increased demand of accessibility resources, designers, developers, and quality engineers, because people are hiring to ensure that they are no more legally sued. And the penalties that happen in United States because of inaccessibility is much higher. I remember few years back, one of the financial services have to stop their few products enhancements to pay the penalty from the budget. So it is very much apparent that the paying one side they have to pay the penalty. After paying penalty, are they entitled to continue as it is? No. they still have to make their website accessible. One side the penalty, and anyways they don't have a choice to refrain themselves by not making their websites accessible. So legally, it is very much important that you have websites and products accessible. And the technical part of it, when we are talking about the technical part, as Joyjit have just mentioned in the previous session, and we are talking about technical aspects. So we may have to ensure our applications are future ready. So if we haven't thought about mobile 10 years back, we might, and you have the just same website for 10 years, you might not be able to use your website on a mobile device. So when you make your website accessible, it is more or less having impact on the futuristic technologies. So if you are making your website accessible, it is already responsive. If you are making your website accessible, it is meeting some standards of search engine optimization, and you are coding with the standards. So most probably you will not break anything in the flow. So automatically the technical standards are met, and it decreases your testing time, quality checking time, because you already have made significant effort in making websites accessible. No broken links, no missing of link text, no missing of alternative text, no missing of labels, etc. So when you are testing your application, you are already meeting few of the quality checks already met because of accessibility. So technically you are more stronger, future ready, and more robust in terms of reaching out to wider user agents, like you say browsers or assistive technologies or any other devices like mobile. It may be handheld devices, or maybe smartwatches, or maybe IoT devices, etc. You are already making sure that your application is future ready. And last but not the least is the social impact. As a great example Ankit is giving, because of him there are 4 or 5 additional people who have shifted to Uber or Amazon, I believe. Yes, it is even the case for me. So we were using Foodpanda and Swiggy for last 2 years, and I think 3 months or 4 months back Uber Eats have been started in our location, and that is where I got additional leverage to get whatever I want. Of course, I don't like the food my wife prepares, so I'm just kidding. But yes, Uber Eats have given me flexibility to choose what I want. So there was after my marriage, so it was so often that my wife says, you never give me surprise. So I have to just play a joke around it. I don't like prizes and surprises, but on the bottom of the heart, I want to do it. And she likes ice creams. I cannot book it on Foodpanda or Swiggy. But when Uber Eats came into picture, I just surprised her with something new. So which in fact, then she started using Uber Eats because I surprised her. So it's more like we're no more using Foodpanda or Swiggy. We all have completely shifted into Uber Eats just because it is accessible. And I'm sure there will be so many other people who are understanding the pain of accessibility, and they are shifting on to newer or accessible applications, and so as their family members or friends and so on and so forth. Which in fact socially is impacting, accessibility socially impacting the application. And as we are mentioning, there is a bigger picture of spending capability of persons with disabilities and their family members, which is 8 trillion is, I don't think no bigger product company have that bigger turnover. So which is definitely a bigger market to be tapped upon, and socially, financially, technically and legally also we will be in a better position if we are making our applications accessible. So what's the next slide? I think we have completed
We
2
have
slides.
reached the WCAG to open.
Right. So most of you have heard about these WCAG standards when Joyjit is talking about. So I will just touch upon few aspects of WCAG. I've been in the WCAG working group in the past. So I want to just give you a outline of how these working groups work and what are different task forces and working groups. I don't want to again go back to into this same theory what we were talking in from the morning. So we already know what are WCAG guidelines, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines that are developed by or framed by World Wide Web Consortium. So the first time when we had this web accessibility standards in 1999, we have WCAG 1.0. At that point in time, we just had the static websites, no interactions, no dynamic content, no carousels, no tabs, or no models, etc. Not that model, it is a web model. So no such a models, etc. So that is the reason the World Wide Web Consortium's Web Accessibility Initiatives Working Group has framed a new set of guidelines called WCAG 2.0. In 2008, it was recommended by W3C, and as you might be seeing on the slides, there are 4 principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. It is just a structural blocks of WCAG standards, and each of these principles have something called guidelines in it. The guidelines in each of these 4 blocks, there are 12 guidelines. So if you take perceivable, so the first guidelines talks about non-text content should have sufficient alternative text. Similarly, if you have a time-based media like audio video content, you should have provided with alternative methods. Like you have a video, there should be a caption available. If there is a video that is just a video, no audio played, you might have to have a narration that comes along with the video. So these are some guidelines that are under each of these principles. So 12 guidelines. Under these 12 guidelines, each of them have, totally there are 61 success criteria. So whenever you are doing some web accessibility evaluation or to understand whether this application is accessible to accessible standards or not, you have to look at these success criteria, the 61 success criteria. So these are the testable statements. Neither the principles nor the guidelines are the testable statements. Those are just the building blocks of the framework. So this 61 success criteria is again categorized into 3 levels: level A, AA, and AAA. And the W3C's working group recommends having level A compliance. Level AA compliance. Recommends level AA compliance. So why this bifurcation is because it is not always feasible to meet all the requirements of accessibility, and it is more expensive, more tough, and it also creates some impact on the branding of the websites or branding of the organization, and it is not feasible always because of the technical difficulties. So that is the reason they want to cut off at some point which is reasonably accessible and usable. So that is the reason people don't go for level AAA level AAA standards. There are very few websites you can see which claims to be level AAA, or at least they tried to do an attempt to have AAA compliance. So level A is simple and no much deviation on the design that happens. So if you see any of the level A guidelines, it is more on the code level that we are making changes, which that might not impact highly on the design. So when you are making level A compliance, you say just provide an alternative text for image, or you provided technical heading standards, or you might be adding one more attributes so that it is more accessible, like H1 tag or maybe some attributes of ARIA, etc. So that is how level A is. So wherein there is a minimal or no impact on the design of the application. When it comes to level AA, it will have a significant impact, or maybe a better impact on the design, on the UI part of the application. Say for example, one of the success criteria says that ensure that there is a contrast ratio of 4.5:1 between the text and its background. Say you have a text of blue color, and if there is a background color, some other background color like a green, and you have to calculate the contrast ratio between the foreground or text and its background. So for this you have to make some changes. Say you got just 2:1 ratio of the contrast. There are tools to do it called color contrast analyzer, and there are some other tools where if you can just have a foreground color and the background color hexadecimal values, if you give it, it will generate the ratio what is the contrast. And there is the color contrast analyzer desktop application where if you pick the foreground color and background color, it will display the contrast value. If the contrast is less than 4.5:1, to meet the WCAG requirements of the accessibility standards, you have to increase the contrast ratio, which means the intensity of the foreground color has to be increased or decreased, or the background color has to be increased or decreased. So this will make a difference in the UI. There will be an impact on the user interface. Similarly, some other guidelines talks about you should have visible labels on the screen. So you have a form that says first name, last name, email address and submit button. And we have a beautiful attribute called placeholder, and people are very interested to use it. But what happens with the placeholders? Can anyone help me understand what does placeholder do in terms of creating a problem for person with disability?
So when you select with the screen reader, it probably says input box,
Right.
and it reads the text in the placeholder instead of the label.
Right, that is one way of saying it. Any other thoughts? Okay. So if you're going to a form and you have a placeholder text in the forms, so if you remember how the placeholder works is the placeholder says first name, and when you start typing it, the first name disappears, and whatever you type will come over there. Is it?
Yes.
So that is how the placeholders work. That is why the placeholders are there. And now you have filled the entire form, and there is no placeholders, meaning there are no labels, and it says Rakesh, last name Paladugula, and email address and submit button. If say for example I want to go and recheck it, it's a small form, you know that this is a sequence. But if you are filling up a bigger form and you want to check whether you have filled everything right or wrong, there is no label. It is only the text that you have filled in is there. So how can you make the corrections? How do you understand? Or in other words, people with cognitive difficulties who have short-term memory loss. So I'm filling up a form and someone called me. I went out for 10 minutes and came back and started continuing the form. And I don't know where I am. What are the fields that I have filled in? Because the labels are already gone away because of the placeholders, and the text has come in that place. So now the guideline says that there should be labels for every form element always visible on the screen. In this case, placeholder is no more a good solution. Or if you want to still use the placeholders, do something technically to say that it is always visible even after you fill in your first name and last name. The label should still be there. The placeholder should be still there. So, which is a design impact. You are adding some additional content which is not available previously. So that is why level AA is little tricky, where you have to make some changes to the design. And level AAA is even complex, because if I take the same success criteria of color contrast, the AAA requirement says that there should be a minimum contrast ratio of 7:1 between the text and its background. 7:1 is almost like a high contrast mode or black and white TV. So people are not interested to make those changes, or it highly impacts the branding of the application. So which people don't want to do it. Or some other techniques that says there should be a sign language or additional features that can allow people with hearing difficulties to use the application. So which is very difficult at this point in time. Maybe if AI have more sophisticated or more intelligent ways of doing it, maybe it comes soon, but as of now it is not a good way of looking at. So that's the reason level AAA meeting is highly difficult.
Question.
Yes.
WCAG does not recommend having a separate subdomain or things like that.
Absolutely not. So it is as simple as it was the case. Earlier, people used to have a static website just saying that it is an accessible website. There are challenges to it because the increase in expense to update. So if you are updating a website, now you are going to update two websites. One is an accessible one and another one is non-accessible one. That is one way of saying it. When you look at the social way of looking at it, you are saying if you are disabled, come like this. If you are not a disabled, you are come like this. Means you are discriminating people. So that is the reason it is no more a practice that accessible website and the general website are two different things.
So generally, just to add to this, so in case your website is completely inaccessible and you know that you have a plan to it, and Rakesh, you can correct me if I'm wrong. For a temporary solution, for a very short-term solution, okay, you can access some material here now for time's sake. It has to be time-bound. For those cases, it is sometimes acceptable, but at most of the times, you have to make sure your product, your core application, your core website is made accessible from a long-term point of view. Because we've also seen that your development cycles in terms of the product update, feature update, those are always left behind for the accessible versions. So eventually, your main core application has to be done it. In case it's completely inaccessible and you know that you want to do it only for a very short period of time, you can have that as a workaround.
Okay, and will I be still compliant if there is an option? Like a
So legally, you can fight saying that I have the option because I see there are some organizations wherein you have a job application form which is not accessible. And there is a telephone number which may or may not work, but it will be available on the website for accommodative solutions. Call us, and that is how businesses argue.
That's not my question. My question is, if instead of having a separate subdomain, if in the same domain, same site, if you just toggle an option saying accessibility friendly or something, and you have a AAA compliant 7:1 contrast ratio thing, is that compliant to WCAG or not?
No. So WCAG never says that you have to have a button that does this or that, but it always talks about the existing content. There is no additional content that or additional way of looking at it.
And as a business, why would you want to do like an existing?
No, his question is valid because
it's valid.
I see
From a design point of view, yes.
that is one, and the other thing is yes, most of the Indian government websites you might have been seeing screen reader mode or high contrast mode. If you switch that button, it switches on to different color schemes and all, which people think that it is a accessible solution, but not necessarily.
So one question.
So it is twofold.
They are hard to define.
So there are something called authoring tool accessibility guidelines. So there are two parts of it. One, if I understand it right, you are saying the programming interface need to be made accessible, and while you are making your program, there should be additional checks or additional attributes that will recommend or without which your program does not get compiled. Is that what you are trying to say?
Probably.
Yeah, they are trying it, but again, as I said, if I am a business organization who want to release a editor that can create website, it is my responsibility to make ensure all those features are inbuilt. So W3C can just say these are the standards that you have to look at, but it is not the controlling body of those organizations. Right? It is again the people who have to sue or do whatever they have to do to make those applications accessible.
And if you just see even the guidelines or the criteria, the success criteria that I mentioned, those are actually recommended, and it goes back to a discussion on functionality, right? So my functionality, if you have a video content, so you have to have an audio description or a subtitle so that people with speech and hearing impairment or visual impairment can access it on equal basis with others. Now, what framework in terms of an environment that you use is completely up to you. as far as making those functionality work for me, it's okay. So whether it's through an IDE or through the tool that you're making, it's okay. So WCAG definitely provides you those recommended expected areas which I need, which you as an application or a website owner that needs to fulfill.
So yeah, so other thing I would probably add is there are applications which, say, if I take WordPress as an example, WordPress authoring site is accessible, and it also gives an opportunity for you to choose the accessible methods of doing it. You do or not, it is again a different story. So if I take an example of WordPress, I can write a line of text. I can increase the font, make it bold and look like a heading. It is my choice. But WordPress authoring tool also allow me to make it as a heading 1 or heading level 2. So if I use heading level and heading level 2, it is accessible, whereas if I increase the font size and make it bold, it is not accessible. It is again the choice of the developer. And as you said, maybe not all the authoring tools are not accessible, or might not be giving same experience as WordPress does, but definitely it is a good point to be added in the future. And the next slide probably I'll be talking about is the how.
There is no next slide.
Okay, let me. So do you know what are the things that come to your mind when we talk about digital accessibility? Is it websites, mobile applications, anything else you might be thinking about?
ATM kiosk.
Absolutely, that's good.
Lifts.
You mean the screen on the left or the buttons of the?
Both.
So buttons, it's again a physical. There are two parts of it. Digital content is something where you have a digital screen and you are trying to touch interactions, etc. But physical, I don't say it is not an accessibility related thing, but it is an infrastructure accessibility. Or as simple as the dashboard of your dashboard consoles and the audio players or the video players in your car. They have touch screens. And any kiosk, not only ATM, you might be seeing platform ticket machines on the railway station, or boarding pass collectors on airports, digital displays on airports, and everywhere you see the accessibility standards apply to any of these, all of this. So that is why we say WCAG is not technology dependent. You can apply to any technology that you are using. It may be a document, it may be web, it may be mobile, or any other digital kiosk, etc. It is not technology dependent. Especially, in other words, also you may be using general HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or Ruby on Rails, or any other technology which in fact creates the UI. The accessibility guidelines are applied to them. So that is the reason we have the next guideline that had just came in, I think June 2018, the .next version, WCAG 2.1. So added few more guidelines that talks about the implications of low vision users, mobile users, and people with cognitive difficulties, and more coming soon, which probably will be renaming as AG, Accessibility Guidelines. It's not no more WCAG, and AG 3.0, or if it may come into WCAG 2.2, 2.3, but the larger release will be AG 3.0, which is Accessibility Guidelines 3.0. So even the standards body is converting the word WCAG into AG. Some people may call it as silver. As you might know, AG is the chemical symbol for silver. So people are calling it as silver guidelines or AG. Accessibility Guidelines 3.0 is going to be, work is already started. It may be releasing maybe in 3 or 4 years. So they're trying to get more understanding of low vision, mobile, and cognitive users. So there are
IoT devices for that.
IoT devices, etc. So there are task forces and working groups working, and most of you are working professionals and students. I would recommend you to go back and see the working groups and how the task forces work. And if you have time and if you are more interested to join the working groups, please feel free to join the working groups and task forces, which in fact give you a more understanding, and also you can contribute to the World Wide Web Consortium's guidelines. So working groups and task forces are already formed. You can look at and probably join if you have good understanding of accessibility and you want to contribute to the web.